Thanks for joining me today on the Sondra Hartstone Show. Today is story time. I want to tell you a story about what happened to me when I was working on our film Faith Under Fire. Faith Under Fire is a story about the first time a gunman walked into a church and committed mass murder in a small town called Dangerfield, Texas, many years ago. But anyway, I had been working on this film for, many months, maybe even close to a year, on and off as I was going to East Texas. And I was on my drive home one day when all of a sudden this song came on the radio and I'm listening to it. All of a sudden, I felt the presence of God in my car so strong. I could barely drive the car. And I was gripping the steering wheel, and I remember running through a red light in a small town, and I said, Lord, I love your presence, but you've got to back off a little bit till I can get home, or I'm not going to make it in one piece. So it kind of lifted till I got home, but what the Lord said to me was, you're headed in the wrong direction. And wow, I knew immediately he meant the way I was telling the story was the wrong angle. I needed to look at it another way. And I said, yes, Lord, what are you telling me? And he said, this is about family reconciliation. Wow. Now, the story I was doing wasn't about reconciliation, but I knew what he was telling me was that a very important part of the storytelling process was that there was going to be family reconciliation among some of the people I was doing the story on. Well, I thought I knew who he was talking about, okay? Because what I thought was going to happen, actually rifts started happening and it started becoming even more difficult among certain family members. And I thought, wow, I was so sure God spoke to me that day in the car. And by the way, I did change the way I was telling the story. I did go in a different direction, and it turned out to be the story that it is. However, this is what I found out after the story was made. And this is very interesting. The man that committed the murder, his name was Al King, and he had two children. He had a daughter and he had a son, of course, named Al King Jr. And I had developed a friendship with the daughter, and the son had actually called me once or twice, and we had struck up a friendship. And I just felt like they needed to be loved and cared for, because it wasn't their fault what their dad did, but so many in society blamed them because they bore his name. And trust me, he was horrible to his children, and they paid a horrible price. But anyway, that's another story. Here's what's interesting about this. Through this process of the film being made, it actually brought the son and daughter together of Al King, because they had become estranged because it was too painful for them to have a relationship, because it just reminded them of their childhood, which had been so unbelievably painful. Anyway, Al King had been an atheist, and his son was a confessing atheist. Okay? Now, because these two came together, which all kind of came about as them talking about this film that we made, they became friends. Well, a few years ago, the sister called me to say, I just wanted you to know that my brother was found dead. He had had a heart attack. She went to the memorial service. She called me when she was on the way to the memorial service. And she called me on the way home just to tell me about what had happened. And this is what had happened. Al had gone to see his ex-father-in-law a few days before he died. And his ex-father-in-law was actually a retired pastor. Would you know that this confessing atheist, a few days before he died, accepted Christ? And the reason I know that is because the brother and sister reconciled. So I actually did hear God that day in the car. And, the fact that so many good things came out of that story, but the fact that this brother and sister got reunited and was able to find some peace with one another, and the fact that Al found the Lord before he died, is such a gift. And it was such a gift to me that I got to hear how his life ended. Wow. God's so good. But I will tell you, I was reminded once again that, I am a filmmaker, I am a storyteller, and that's not the main thing. The main thing is that we carry Christ with us wherever we go. God sends us on assignments, all of us. All of us get God assignments all the time. I realized a long time ago that being a filmmaker is really the car I ride in to get to these assignments. And, the great thing I love about being a filmmaker is everywhere I go to tell a story with people, they become friends and they become a part of my life from here on out. You just have to get so deep into somebody's life and kind of into their skin, so to speak, when you tell their story. And when I do share a story, I like doing documentary features because I love true stories. I just like hearing the story from the person's own mouth. And you have to get so embedded into their life and into their story to be able to really tell their story the right way. And I actually feel like I'm on holy ground when I'm telling people's story. It's nothing I take for granted because it is sacred. It's someone's story. It's someone's life. And this particular scenario I'm telling you about with these two offspring of this man who had done such evil turned out in such a beautiful way. Anyway, it's just a special story with me, so thanks for letting me share it with you today. I hope you will check out our other podcast. Every Monday we do a podcast with a guest, someone that I think is really awesome that you need to know. And then on Wednesdays, of course, I share a story with you. I also hope you'll check out all of the great new content we have on our website, heartstonenetwork.com. We have a really fun series called I Am Not Ashamed with Mario Murillo. We have lots of content with Heidi Baker. And of course, my old pal Lance Wallnow is on our site as well as many other people, some you've probably never heard of, that are living incredibly inspiring lives because they are walking hand in hand with a miracle working God. Anyway, it's been great spending some time with you today. I hope to see you here again next time. I'm Sondra Hartstone, the Master Storyteller. And remember our motto here, live passionately and love big. I'll see you next time, everybody.